Alright, you YouTube viewers. Today we've got a project of replacing the weather stripping on the front door of my 1987 Jeep J20. It's dried out, it's cracked, it doesn't seal anymore. Let's come along, I'll show you all the pieces that need to be replaced, the tools you need to replace them, and how to use those tools to replace them. You can tell how bad the weather stripping is by the cracking. It's going to let water in. It's not going to seal tightly up against the glass. And that's for both the inner and the outer, but the outer definitely are worse. It's coming apart in pieces. Here are the parts you're going to need to replace and the tools you're going to need to replace them. First item you've got to replace, if yours are worn out or leaking, is the vent window seals. BJs sells a kit that has both sides included, and it includes for both sides this rubber seal that goes around the vent window, as well as this divider bar that goes in the back. And that will rivet to your existing center divider bar. The next part you're going to need to replace is this front window channel. Again, BJ sells a kit with both sides included, and that's going to rivet onto the old divider bar assembly, the stainless steel strip that mounts inside your door. The next part going around the outside is the top and rear felt. This is the part that goes on the top and on the back side that your window will ride in and seal against. The next two parts are the window wipes, both an outer and an inner. They look alike, but they're actually different parts. So make sure you order the parts you need. Don't confuse the inner and the outer. The outer is going to have a wider strip of rubber than the inner will. Those also are sold individually, or they're sold as a set of 4 if you have a 2-door, or a set of 8 if you have a 4-door. While I have the door apart, there's only a couple more gaskets that need to be replaced. Those are going to be the handle gasket, which again, you can get them as a set for both sides, and include, might as well, the lock gasket around the locking cylinder. The final item inside the door, which is not a bad idea to replace if yours isn't worn out and broken already, it may be soon, is the lock spring for getting your lock handle to go up and down. Those wear out, those get tired, they break. And then for the tools, these are the ones that I use. You could probably do it with a different set of tools, but you need a large and a normal size flat blade screwdriver, a number 2 Phillips, a number 3 Phillips, a T27 Torx bit, either on a handle like this or as a bit for use with a driver. You're going to need a panel a clip removal tool, a couple of rivet guns, a punch to drive out the old rivets. You could use a drill to drill out the old rivets. I'm going to show you how to do it since I'm replacing the channel that would get destroyed by using this. It doesn't matter. It's a little bit easier perhaps to try to remove things using this mini grinder. I'm going to use, to save time, a driver with screw bits, as well as a 5/32 hex bit, a 3/8 inch bit, and a 7/16 inch bit. A hammer for use with the punch, and I'm going to use this rubber trim removal tool for helping install some of the seal around the vent window. I'm also going to show you how to replace entirely the vapor shield that goes behind your door card. In order to make that stick, in order to redo that, I use strip caulk. It comes in a package like this, individual pieces of rubber or rubberized sealant that you just pull out what you need and lay it around the perimeter of the door. And then, to make sure everything moves smoothly, I'm going to use some white lithium grease. I like to use the solid grease from a tub for lubricating as much as possible. The rest I'll use some spray lube. That's pretty much it. There might be another tool or such that you'd need to use, but that's more or less what you need. Oh, I also have a 3/8 inch socket on a small handled one. You'll see what I need that for in a bit. All right, let me show you what it takes to take apart your door. All right, first thing we're going to have to remove are the items that are attached to the door card or to the handles inside. We'll start with got that turned all the way down. I want to turn it all the way up for removal. The handles have these little plastic shields. Keep them with the right handle. Put them back in the right location. And that's the 5/32 hex bit required to remove the little hex screw in the middle. Next one, you don't want to use a power drill on necessarily, or power driver. 2 screws on the bottom of this door handle that hold this trim on. And those are just 2 number 2 Phillips screws. The next ones, and this depends on each year and model, this is what mine happens to have, these are common to the Grand Wagoneer as well, are number 3 Phillips screws with the larger bit. Don't try using a number 2. I mean, usually it will work, but you could ruin things. One other thing. These screws tend to pull through. So, what I mean by pull through is they tend to pull through this housing. This housing cracks over here. You can see this is starting to crack, this is starting to crack. Sometimes this whole piece will just crack away. You can put a tube in there and epoxy it into place. JB Weld is great for that. Maybe a brake line or fuel line, a length of that in there. You figure something out. You can't get these brand new, so good used replacements are your only options. And then, time to remove the screws. Jeep installed 4 of them along the bottom. Other owners may have thought the door panel wasn't secure enough and installed more, like mine right here. I got a non-factory one there and a non-factory one there. Oh well, whatever it takes to attach a door card, I suppose. Once those are off, the factory used some plastic clips like this, which frequently pull out of the door. So I can screw that back in or just rely on the additional screws someone used. But the idea is to get behind it and pop them out. You can feel where they're located. There are replacements sold for these. There's, from the factory, 3 on the back and 4 on the front. And if someone has added an aftermarket tweeter, like this one here, it's connected by wires. This one has just a couple of spade connectors. So I just slide down a little protective sheeting that whoever installed used on him, and pull that little spade connector off. This I could go clean up. Right now I think I'm just going to put it in the back. And then frequently the later Grand Wagoneers are going to have a speaker in the door. So you remove that, because that provides all access hole you're going to need to use to get things from inside the door. And then just note, usually they're supposed to be different size spades. Mine, the positive, uses a blue connector, negative uses a clear or white connector. Pull those off. See, they're designed to use a small and a large spade connector so you don't get them confused. The install shop that did this didn't find that important. And I don't know if you can see, there's a date right here. Jan 87 is when this truck was built. And what this does, you can see how it's designed, it's a vapor seal. So any water that gets past the window is going to be inside the door. You don't want to get it inside the passenger compartment. So what the factory did is sealed around the perimeter so that if any water leaks past, it would always stay on the inside of the door. It's supposed to be sealed against the door. Any openings like this could let water in. When water gets down to the bottom, you'll note this little seal sits inside the door like this. If you leave it like this, what's going to happen? The water is going to drip down the inside of this and then drip right into your passenger compartment. This little flap being tucked into this little slot is critical for keeping water out of your cab. It also means, however, there should be sealant right here. Right now, this piece is not sealed. So when it rained, I would get water inside my cabin right here. I'd get it because this would allow water into there. So I'm going to replace this entire door card. Note how it goes. These are sealed up. This little flap goes in. I'm going to redo it all in one piece. There's been an aftermarket audio device in there. I'm not even quite sure what it is. It's zip tied in there. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to leave it intact. Deal with that at some future point. But I'm going to use all new 4mm poly to create a new vapor seal. And I'll show you how I do that using that strip caulk. Alright, time to pull all this stuff off. We're not using it again. We don't even need it. I see something like that strip caulk used by the factory right there. But without that strip caulk, you're not getting any seal around the perimeter. And again, it seals around this speaker housing, which is actually a little loose. You tighten that up before I forget. It's not supposed to be tight on there. It's not supposed to be floating. Alright, you see this little piece right here, it wasn't tucked in, so water could come down over here and puddle up right inside the door frame. I'm going to make sure that nothing's going to puddle up around any of these spots. Looks like someone tried to redo some of this over here. It's a little something, but we'll start from scratch. It's easy enough to do, it's cheap. The cost of some strip caulk and some 4mm poly. Alright, I'm going to wipe down this door at some point. Clean it all out. Also make sure the inside of the door is clean, not filled with debris that's blocking the drain holes. There's little drain holes around the bottom of this door. Luckily, doesn't look too bad. Alright. Let me show you how to remove the other parts. Keep your handle handy. is you're going to need to move the window up and down a few times to take out other parts. The first part I'm going to take out, since it needs to be cleaned and lubricated, is this handle for opening the door. 3 3/8" bolts with little lock washers. This is not an impact driver, it's just a screwdriver. So when something's tight, I can just give it a little twist by hand and it moves it. Okay, keep those together. With the window all the way up, at least on the manual door, the little lever for the window blocks travel, so it gets in the way. You got to roll the window down a little bit to remove and to reinstall the handle mount on the inside with the 3 bolts. Now let me just show you something else. This rod for the handle connects to this latch inside, and it's got a little spring-loaded washer there. That keeps this latch on there. And you can remove it, but only from a very particular angle. That particular angle, you got to let this mechanism drop all the way down, and then you can pull that back. If you have super strong fingernails, you can pull it back with your fingernail, but a little screwdriver for those of us without super strong fingernails might be a better choice. What you want to do is push it, and then this slides up, and there's one position that it will come off. Just one. You can push through from the other side and pushes the spring loaded washer. There we go. And I'll show you the other end of it. Show how it locks on in all positions except with this almost vertical. Now there's 3 mounting screws for this latch. They are T27 sized. A lot of kits include the T27 size because that's a common Jeep size for torque screws. It's going to be tight. You might need a bit in a ratchet in order to get this out. So far this is coming out without that. Although you can tell there's some corrosion on the screws on the exposed end. It's making it tough to take off. You can tell I've done this on a bunch of Jeeps by the twist on my T27 bit. Like the splines on an axle on a drag car, you can tell when something's been twisted a number of times. Alright. 3 of those and it's off. There is one latch from the lock mechanism. You have to pull this out before you do any of that. You need to remove the outer lock, which is held in with a clip. This clip just grabs the lock cylinder, which after you pull it off is free to pull out. this actually grabs inside the door like that and pushes it tight up against the door. Even tighter when there's the gasket that's supposed to be there, but it isn't there now. With that free, we can pull this latch mechanism out and twist it off of that lock. This lock rod can stay inside your vehicle while we clean this horribly cruddy latch off. Now, time to remove the window mechanism and then this frame here. Now, this window mechanism is attached to this window with a, let me show you down here, little slider. And there's a hole perfectly positioned right here for you to access that slider. Except you're not going to access the front of it. You're going to access the back of it. There is, on the other side of this pin, a clip that Jeep uses for its manual windows as well as for its clips that hold the tailgate window on a Grand Wagoneer. It has to be pried off. You might break yours in the process. 4 little fingers that grab into a groove on the end of this shaft that's spring-loaded. And a large screwdriver is your best bet for prying it off. It's tough because you can't see what you're prying on. And there we go. See, these little fingers snap onto the pin and hold it. So you just have to pry this clip until those fingers go past their bending point and pops it off. So now the window is free from this mechanism. And anything else fall off? Yes. There is also between that clip and the window a plastic washer. If it falls off, retrieve it, because the order is going to be the pin, it goes through the channel, this sits there, and then this rides up against it. So this is your wear surface, not this. Alright, now I can remove this window lifting mechanism. And just as a quick tip, to keep the window from dropping down, you can kind of rest it on the lock rod. It's not putting a lot of weight on it. So back with my 3/8" bit. 2 nuts for the studs on the bottom, and 2 bolts for the top. Then I can pull this out, and it's going to be tricky to get around the various brackets and things inside here. There's a little bit of sealant around this window assembly. I'll replace that when I reinstall it. Channel that we're going to remove in a second that goes straight up here, and you have to slide this between the door panel and that channel in there. So you just have to wiggle it past there. Once it's flipped 180 degrees, you can take it out. So it mounts in there like this. You lower this, you flip it around, and then you can take it out from this opening here. This speaker bracket also comes out if you want more space, but usually you don't need it. And you can see the pin on which that clip sits. You push this retainer over that, those 4 fingers grab that groove, and that's what holds the regulator, window regulator, to the channel. Power window has a completely different setup. That has attachment points from the flex track to the glass, so that's very different. There's probably a video out there showing you how to do the same thing but with a power window. Alright. Now that that's done, I can let the glass fall down all the way. Actually, I can't because the window stop is holding it in place. This little bracket keeps the window from dropping down too far. So 2 7/16 head bolts. And now my window can drop down without that stop there. And the lock rod is a little in the way over on the end there, but I don't have to get past that because now it's actually time to remove this vent window. The vent window has 4 Phillips head screws on the top, one which goes through a piece of weather stripping. Sometimes that weather stripping pulls out and hides the head of that screw. Let's bring you up here so you can see this. There's just 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're going to be the screws that hold this vent window in on the upper portion. Note the relative position of the screw heads in those holes. The screw holes in the vent window and the screw holes in the frame, you're going to have to slide it back into position and match those locations. Now, I've heard people talk about there being a hidden screw under here. I don't see one on this truck. Nope, nothing. Nope. So that vent window now is held in only by these 2 bolts here and these 2 bolts here. While I'm up here, I may as well remove these weather strippings for the door glass. There's a tool you can buy. Will allow you to pull it up. And that's good if you want to save your door seals. I'm not saving these. So there's 4 clips which go in at a specific angle. And if you pull them up at that angle, they'll pop right out. One thing you can do to help them come out, if you're going to be destroying them like I'm going to be destroying these, is to slip a screwdriver between the seal and the door and bend those pieces so those clips aren't grabbing hold of the door as tight. They're kind of tight to get out, but once you get them coming out, they come out pretty readily. I'll show you what these clips look like and how they grab on. So what you've got are these clips, and they're normally much tighter, and they have a little tooth on them. And they grab into these little slots along the door frame, right there. So 1 clip in each slot. They're usually quite tight. If you bend them out like this, it loosens up that clip's grab on those slots. This is why it's a good idea to do all these pieces at the same time. It'd be a difficult thing to do this if you've already replaced these seals against the door. The BJ sells a complete kit which includes the glass weather stripping around the windshield. Maybe even worth your while buying that. There we go. That's all out. I say that because this is going to work much better. It's going to be a lot easier to get out if I don't have those strips in the way. Next, there's two screws down here that hold an L bracket that attaches to this channel. Remove those first. And then you can reach in with your driver, or if you have plenty of time, just use a wrench and loosen the 7/16 headed bolt that attaches this bracket to the window frame. I already removed that one. There we go. It attaches with a 7/16 headed bolt, quarter inch bolt, through that into the frame. Now, there's only these two up here. And let me bring it in close. Jeep installed these before it pop riveted this trim on there. So that trim is in the way. You don't have to remove it, this is hidden. You just have to bend that trim out of the way. You can kind of mangle it if you want, it doesn't matter, because it's all going to be hidden once you put the door card back on. You basically just want enough of it up out of the way in order for that washer to clear. If you're really ambitious, like I was on the other door, I could bend it out of the way permanently, but don't have to be that ambitious. Alright, now in principle, this door frame is free. So I've just got to knock it back and out. Not held in by anything now, except years and years of accumulated dust. Oh, here's the thing that's holding it in. This upper channel. Use a smaller screwdriver, preventing it from moving back. This just pushes in. You pull it out like that. Now, this piece should be able to be moved back from here. So you see it starting to pull out over here. Have to get it out over here as well. One thing holding it in place is this seal. If you can push it down into the door, you might have a better shot of getting this window to move. It's out. It's free. I don't know what was holding that in place. Probably little tangs right here. I'll have to fix the shape of that. we go. And that is it. The vent window is removed. While we're here, though, I'll put this to the side, and we're going to remove the door handle and replace its gaskets while we've got access to it. But let me show you what I mean about welds cracking. See this little bracket that supports the bottom of the door for the A-frame for the vent window? I got a crack here, I got a crack here. There's a bracket up front, there's a bracket in the back. This one, I haven't had a Jeep in which it hasn't separated, but it cracked right along there and cracked over here and starting to crack over there. A sign of that is if you can pull on the door frame there and it moves freely. That's a sign that you've got a crack right there. I don't have a MIG welder to weld it up again, so it's just going to sit like that till I get one and go back in here. For now, let's look at the door handle. The door handle is held on by 2 screws, 3/8 inch headed, one right there and one right up there. They're easy to get to with just a small socket wrench. They're usually not on very tight. There's one. This you do have to have the latch out in order to access them. 2. Alright, you can see the old outline of the old gaskets, which are cracked and not gasketing very well anymore. So, time to replace them. This is also when you can tell whether someone has painted your truck before. There's buildup around here. They tend not to replace or take the handles off to paint something. You can see the paint overspray on this. Guess this truck was painted at one time. Okay, new gaskets for the handle. They are side specific, so they only go on one way. You can pretty much tell how they fit around there. They're actually marked left and right. You'll note they're not a perfect fit in the sense that the curves of the gasket don't exactly match the door handles. So what you've got to do is kind of push the gasket around the perimeter of the handle so it matches as well as possible and fits in there as best it can. That could require pushing the gasket around a bit and it's not fitting very well around the top part here. So let me get the screws started, and you definitely want to start these screws by hand because they're going into pot metal. It'll be very easy to cross thread them. When you tighten it down, it's going to push into that gasket and seal against the door. It's going to compress that gasket, which is going to hold these screws in place. Screws also have a kind of star lock washer around the perimeter. Alright. I greased up the handle as well. And don't over tighten them. Just pull it snug. You're compressing that gasket. And that gasket is going to keep tension on those screws. There we go. Alright. I took the little strip on the inside here out. It just pulled right out. Now, time to rebuild that vent window. Let's go back to the tailgate and I'll show you how that's done.